Qualifying for the 2023 edition of the 24 Hours of Le Mans is now complete, and we now know exactly where every entry will line up on the grid for this historic race in 2023. So for this video, I will dive into the details on what happened during qualifying and where each of the 62 cars will line up. Now first off, let's go to the sessions themselves. Before the official 24 Hours of Le Mans, qualifying took place on the Wednesday before the race, with Hyperpole taking place on Thursday. Qualifying is exactly what the name implies, a qualification for the grid itself. But on the day of qualifying, the top 8 for each of the 3 classes are not decided. Let me explain. Hyperpole, which was introduced in 2020, takes place on the day after the official qualifying session. Hyperpole is the qualification format for the top 8 cars in each of the 3 categories. This session will essentially find out who will take pole position in the class and overall at Le Mans. Let's begin by talking about the first qualifying session of the 91st edition of Le Mans. Each of the 3 categories impressed with some serious competition. Here are the cars that made it into Hyperpole for GTE AM. On top was the number 83 Richard Mille AF Corsa Ferrari. The cars that made it in included Aston Martins, Ferraris, and the single Corvette. Unfortunately, it was not a good day for the Porsche entered teams. In LMP2, these were the cars that made it into Hyperpole. The number 28 Jota on top. The 2 Primas were also in to the final qualifying session. Unfortunately, it was not a good day for United Autosports, as both of their entries did not qualify well in the LMP2 class and did not make it in to Hyperpole. But hey, this is just qualifying. The race is completely different, especially considering that it is 24 hours long. Hypercar was arguably the most exciting part of qualifying, especially considering that it was a record-sized grid, 16 Hypercars on the grid for this year's Le Mans. It was a very close qualifying session in terms of pace, and it was hard to tell who would be making it into Hyperpole. Now, I would say the biggest disappointment in terms of the Hypercar category was Jota Sports 963 not being able to set a time during the session. They had a hybrid issue, and that resulted in them not being able to participate in qualifying. Qualifying would end up like this. The Ferraris and Toyotas would lock out the first 4 positions, with the number 75 and number 5 Porsches in qualifying as well. 2 of the Cadillacs also joined them. Both of the Chip Ganassi cars would be in the top 8. The number 6 car would just miss out on Hyperpole, qualifying in 9th position just behind the number 2 Cadillac. It was a little unfortunate to see that both of the Peugeot 9X8 Hypercars would not make it in to Hyperpole. But of course, as we know, the race is completely different to qualifying, so I expect that Peugeot's cars will come back stronger in the event itself. The red 311 Cadillac from Action Express Racing was the only V Series R to not make it in to Hyperpole. Cadillac are definitely showing some strong pace heading into Le Mans. Even the Action Express Cadillac, which did not make it in to Hyperpole, was only a 10th behind the number 94 Peugeot. Following the Cadillac was the 2 Glickenhauses and the number 4 Van Wall. Glickenhaus was unfortunately a little far behind compared to the other 5 manufacturers, and the same situation with Van Wall. But remember, they do not have a hybrid in the back of them and are also smaller manufacturers. But as a huge supporter of Glickenhaus and Van Wall, I hope that they have an amazing race at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Something you may be wondering was, where was the Nascar race car entry from Hendrick Motorsports? Well, this entry is a part of the innovative class and doesn't have the opportunity to head into Hyperpole. But here's what I can tell you about its qualifying session. Originally, the NASCAR race car entry was going to start at the very back of the grid, but now it will start in 38th position ahead of all of the GTE AM entries. One of the most impressive parts about its qualifying was that it was able to qualify ahead of the GT cars. That's right, the Garage 56 NASCAR race car entry qualified with a time of a 3-minute 47.976. The fastest time by a GTE entry in the first qualifying session was set by the number 83 Ferrari, a 3-minute 51.877. This meant that the experimental entry qualified around 4 seconds faster than any GTE AM car in the first qualifying. Pretty impressive. Moving on to Hyperpole, and in GTE AM, it was the number 33 Corvette that took pole position with a sensational lap. They beat the number 25 TF Aston Martin, and in third, it was the number 54 AF Corsa Ferrari. In LMP2, it was IDEC Sport taking pole position with the number 28 Jota in second, and the race winners from LMP2 in Belgium, Team WRT in third. And as for the Hypercar class, this was Ferrari's qualifying session. They were on fire during this race for pole position. The number 50 car, driven by Antonio Fuoco, took pole position, followed by Alessandro Pierguidi in the number 51 Ferrari, taking second. A Ferrari 1-2 at Le Mans overall. Fuoco's time was a 3-minute 22.982, actually a record for the Hypercar class at Le Mans in terms of pole position. Toyota's number 8 car took third position, but Kobayashi's lap in the number 7 car was actually deleted due to track limits, so the number 75 Porsche, which is a one-off entry for Le Mans, grabbed fourth. Porsche and Cadillac actually did pretty good. The number 75 Porsche, of course, taking fourth, and their sister car, the number 5, in seventh. The two Cadillacs were 6th and 8th. Although the number 3 Cadillac had a pretty big issue when Sebastian Bourdais had to climb out of the car when it was on fire. Overall, Cadillac were still in the fight with Ferrari, Toyota, and Porsche during the session, but it still was a devastating result for the number 3 yellow Cadillac. So looking at this overall, the qualifying session was actually pretty competitive in all three classes. I think that number 33 Corvette is going to be the car to beat, but they're going to have some fierce competition from the rest of the entries. I personally think that their nearest competition is going to come from the number 83 Richard Mille AF Corsa Ferrari. I also think that TF Sport is going to be up there with their Aston Martin. Also watch out for Heart of Racing. They won the Rolex 24. If they can win Le Mans, that would be amazing for that team. As always, I think LMP2 is going to be a very close battle, especially here at Le Mans. Any one of the teams could win Le Mans in LMP2. It's going to be hard for IDEC Sport to defend against all those LMP2 cars, but if they can and lead on the first lap, that's a huge win for the team. And then, of course, there's Hypercar. In my opinion, the most intriguing battle in the World Endurance Championship and at the 24 Hours of Le Mans this year. This race is going to be the first Le Mans involving the new golden age of Hypercar. And the last time we had a similar amount of manufacturers competing for overall victory was back in 1999. For the first time this season, I think Toyota are beatable. Ferrari has a very strong car. They qualified first and second and look to be the team that is fastest overall. I'm really interested to see if Ferrari can maintain first and second on the first lap. I think the number 8 Toyota and the number 75 Porsche are going to be looking to take the lead as well. Don't count out Porsche or Cadillac. I think it's going to be definitely a four-way fight for the victory. And also Peugeot could get in the fight as well. Those 9X8 hypercars I expect will be much faster in the race itself. So that was my recap on qualifying and Hyperpole. All that's left now is the big event, the 24 Hours of Le Mans. What are you most excited for as we head into this historic race? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comment section. If you're interested in more content surrounding the 24 Hours of Le Mans and endurance racing in general, this is the channel to subscribe to. Please subscribe by clicking the button to the left. If you want to see another video right now, I suggest clicking one of the options to the right of your screen. So that's it for me. I'll see you in the next video.